Good afternoon. Oh, I have two, nobody here. Good afternoon, Angelique. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi. I think it took a while for you all to come in because I said, where's everybody? Okay.
Holiday.
I know it's a holiday weekend. That's why Miguel sent out the emails.
Well, we thought nobody no response would have been a response.
Exactly. So that's why we had class. What do you mean?
No, I mean, like, in terms of him saying, well, nobody responding, probably let's just continue on next week, Saturday.
Yeah. That's what we did. Two persons responded and said yes.
They're the two people who don't have a life, clearly. me included.
Oh, Lord. All right. But don't forget, this chapter is not that long because we're talking about something that you know very well, which is money.
Listen, can I say something? The class from last week, because I actually wasn't able to log in last week. Is that on YouTube for me to for me to listen over that?
Okay, what I'll do is I'll remind Miguel right now to upload it.
Please, because I want to make sure I want to make sure I catch that, because I had some stuff going on last week, so I couldn't log in.
Okay, hold on. Let me send it to him right now. So it's not too late. Okay, Miguel, as a reminder, please upload last week's. Okay, it's gone. So
I'll just
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, so that's gone. Okay, so now let's go to our class. I know it's a holiday weekend. Hi, Sandy. Hey, Sandy just joined. So I got homework from
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon from Makira, Sharella, Christina, and Sandy.
What was the homework?
The homework was you had to write an essay. What is the principle of separate corporate personality?
Oh, Jesus, I missed that assignment.
So, well, you need to write it and send it in.
So what's the deadline? Send that's in the book?
Just the first chapter, and then our discussions, and then the cases that we did.
I don't even see that in the first. So
Yeah.
Okay, so this would have been general law practice, or type of company is?
It's general law practice.
Okay, so we're still in unit 1.
This is that was for unit 1.
Okay. So today is still a continuation of unit 1?
No, today is unit 3.
What the frig? I read, yeah. This is God. I got plenty reading to do. Oh my God. I have to get it together.
Okay, so Sandy, I looked at yours. Yours was very well done, very thorough. And because Angelica has to do hers, I won't go through the others.
Please.
I just going to make some general comments. So Sandy, some points will be added to your midterm for this homework.
So just this one, what we're talking about from unit 1 is the assignment that needs to be completed.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do that week and send that to you.
Right. You'll get another week.
Okay.
All right. Makira is then on. Sharella. Shirella, you need to do more work. This is
Okay,
too,
too short, right?
yeah,
I was trying to expound on it, but it's just not much. I mean, like the general point was the same. Could I speak more about the actual Solomon Prince, the actual case, maybe?
yes, you have to expand on the case on Solomon. And then
Okay.
what was the other thing related to the separate legal personality, which we discussed? Remember? Piercing?
Yes, passing the corporate veil. Yes.
Yes, so you have to speak to that.
Okay. Okay. I'll go back at it.
Yeah. And Christina isn't on. So, well, if she listens to this.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yours was the same thing. The same as Shirella's. You have to explain the principle itself that established this corporate personality, and then you have to speak about when the courts would pierce the corporate veil.
Okay.
Yeah. And you only can talk about piercing the corporate veil by referring to case law. So that's a question. This is well, it's not the same question in every class, but this is a question just so I can see that you're grounded and you know exactly what it means to have a separate legal personality. So Angelique, I'll wait for yours also, so I can mark that and see if you're getting some points. Now,
Okay.
and I have a question for you. We didn't discuss midterm, did we? I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
Not as yet.
Okay, so midterm is normally done in class and is normally short answers with a few multiple choices. Any objections?
Would it be the questions right in the book or no?
No. You mean the ones at the back?
Yes, ma'am.
No, no. There'll be scenario questions.
So we'll
You-
have the scenarios beforehand and then we just answer them in class, or?
No. You actually go to BIFs to sit the exam, to sit the midterm.
Oh, okay.
Or you want to do it as a take home, which one?
Take home, please.
If it's a
Take on for me, please. Monkeypox is going around.
Indeed.
hold on. We only had,
Y'all see COVID taking a backseat now. It's monkeypox.
now we only had one case of monkeypox. So there's no monkeypox going around.
I like her argument though. I you know, you give your reason and you give your justification. I love it.
Okay, so if I
Take home for me too then. Take
Okay,
home
if
for me.
okay, so if I do it as a take home, then there will be no multiple choice. That's okay?
Yeah, because as you know, I'm accustomed to your. This is my first class with you, and I know that you will prepare us well in advance on how to respond to this info.
Ah, you think this is the final thing? No. It'll be on the topics that we covered. So you know it'll be on us on the Solomon principle. It will be on companies in general, the different types of companies. You know will be on client due diligence, and will also be on pre-incorporation and then record keeping. So it's just those first 5 chapters. And when record keeping is very short. So when we do that chapter on record keeping, we'll just do just a brief overview so you could have an idea what the midterm would look like. But I won't give you the midterm questions. I'll just give you an idea. So you don't sit there and start scratching, pulling out all your hairs. So that's good. Okay,
Yes, that works. Thank you.
okay, midterm. I was making a note, take on midterm. Okay, so last class when we ended, I wanted us to discuss the case of Press versus Petrodel. Remember, some persons admitted that they hadn't read it. Sandy, you did a very good job in your essay explaining the decision in Press versus Petrodel. But I want to know if anyone else read it.
Thank you.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
What? You have to read it because when you look at the Solomon principle and look at the cases in the past that were used and the rationale for the judges for piercing the corporate veil, even though Press versus Petrodel doesn't really clarify it, it's still leaning towards the new way of saying there's no need to pierce the corporate veil, to go behind that structure, that there are other ways in which you can still get to the same premise, which is finding out who exactly actually controls the company and how can you benefit from it.
I hate that part of reviewing corporate accounts.
But if you understand that part, then you really begin to see why a company is so important in a structure.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the key for everyone incorporating companies.
Yeah.
And that's the key for everyone using a company is for that structure. Without that structure, you can't separate liabilities. And of course, for the person who is suing, they're looking at their rights. And in this instance, it was the wife.
Mm-hmm.
So even though he had incorporated those companies and he had each one of the companies being owned by another company, who was the person behind it? It was him. And that's why the court says it's you don't actually have to pierce the corporate veil. You could just look behind it. So you don't actually disturb the structure. Who is the person behind all?
Sorry, Miss Archer. It's a difference between lifting and piercing, right?
They use the words interchangeably. But lifting and piercing is different from looking behind. Because when you look behind, you're not actually going through removing that structure. You're just saying who actually owns these companies without actually going and piercing the corporate veil, removing that liability. It really becomes technical. But when you look behind, you can use other principles other than company law. Because if you pierce the corporate veil, then you're going to have to use company law cases in which the court had pierced the veil and the reasons why they pierced the veil. But in Press versus Petrodel, they relied on trust principles rather than company law. So you really have to read the case to understand again why the judges are trying not to pierce the corporate veil, unless of course there is some fraud. You're trying to evade paying your taxes. Or you're trying to conceal something. Other than that, they do not pierce the corporate veil. But if from just looking at the structure, you could see who is the beneficial owner without doing that, and there is another remedy for the aggrieved person to obtain whatever it is that they're looking for, the courts will take that route. And we will go through some company law cases. Wonder we should do that next class. Maybe for next class, I'm going to share with you all a company law case, one that we can discuss, a local one. So you can see how the courts here deal with issues. I haven't seen one where they pierce the corporate veil, but at least you'll see how the courts and the way in which they think here and how they apply principles. Anybody have any case they want to refer? The Bahama Divers was a good one. Anybody have another one? No?
I have one in mind, but it's an active and ongoing and very salacious case potentially. So we'll look at that different separately. And because even in doing my assignment, and then also when we spoke about Bahama Divers, I was wondering if that was what was done in this instance that I'm thinking about. And it's a very popular case right now. It has not gone to trial, I don't think, or they're in the process of it. But anyway, I'm wondering if to get to where they are at this point, if that was considered piercing the corporate veil. But I suppose we can answer that question probably will become clearer as we go along.
Okay. Is it in the
Or they
paper?
It's in everything.
What it is?
Sorry.
Which case is that?
This
Which part?
Adrian Gibson and his companies. How did they get to him and the parties that are now being, if you want to use the word, exposed as directors, members, etc. Would that be considered a case of having pierced the corporate veil? In my mind, I was wondering.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is all
And
companies.
I let me tell you why I'm asking that question, because I remember in one of maybe our first class or even last class, we were discussing how people tend to think once they set up a company, doesn't matter what they intend to do with it, they're safe, like their personal liability, they're safe from any responsibility, personal liability, etc. And as we have seen, that isn't necessarily the case. Because I mean, I grew up hearing people, oh, just put your assets in the company and then so-and-so can't touch it, but that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
So I was wondering, in my mind, just as we were going through Bahama Divers, like I said, and doing the assignment, would that be considered the route the courts are going to have arrived where they are now?
But it hasn't gone to court yet.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. I did mention it's not, the proceedings haven't begun, but is it what they're doing when they're peeling away all of these different layers to get where, because all of these things will be presented in court, all these findings. So would that be considered an avenue, or unless the judges decide this is what should have been done, would that be considered piercing the corporate veil? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so at this point now, before they would actually take them out of the court, they have to do investigations. Now, these companies, and most likely these were incorporated under the Companies Act. So these companies are required by law to file their annual statements. Okay? And the annual statement states who are the shareholders. And it states who are the directors. So let's just say on the annual statement, it said the shareholder is A, B, C, and D, and his name is nowhere on it.
Mhm.
So that's side E, or that's side one. On the flip side of it is they're following the money. And following the money means that going now to the chapter that we're going to do today, they're looking at the money trail. Where did it start and where did it end?
Okay.
And so when they present in court, they're going to present two things. One, the company and its shareholders on record. And then two, they're going to have to present following the money.
Okay.
Now, to pierce the corporate veil, they're going to have to prove to the court that these entities were incorporated either to conceal or to evade. That's when the piercing comes in.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
I got
yeah. And then you go behind the individual person who actually owns the company. Now, remember, you'll see when we do other, later down, other chapters, you can have shareholders who would hold the shares in a nominee capacity, which means that they're holding it on behalf of someone else.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that the court will look at when they look at the ownership of the company. They're going to have to prove that the shareholders of that company, A, B, C, and D, are not the actual owners. And in order to do that, they're going to have to be able to get a court order for the registered agent to provide the proof that A, B, C, or D, or all of them, or some of them, have a declaration of trust signed saying that they are holding these shares on behalf of Adrian Gibson.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I've seen that type of document.
Right. So
Okay.
it's a combination of the two. Like you say, it will become really messy, and it depends on how you present it.
Mhm.
So if you go in from the criminal side, you have to establish that a crime has been committed. And then the next part is now whoever it is who says that they have been cheated or wrong now has to say, how am I going to get my money? Where is the money? And that's when they're going to bring the action against the company and be able to prove that he is the person behind, so that if the company is unable to pay, then they will sue him.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But be mindful that it is political, so it can drop at any time.
Yes, and that's kind of why I was a little hesitant to, but it really, that first came to my mind as I was doing the assignment, and yeah. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
They go halfway, quarter way, and then they turn around and say the Bahamas government must pay them 2 and 3 million. Because the one with the former MP who we paid what, 2 million to, was similar, just like this
Yes.
series of companies. His name was on none, and they let him walk free. And then he sued for wasting his time.
I think, and I don't want to drag it out because I know we need to proceed with our lesson.
It ties into company law, and also the part about doing the investigation, because that's all a part of client due diligence. So it
Right.
ties in. So we could go in, and I'm going to show you how it ties in.
Okay, so I was just about to say, the difference between the two and this is from my little layman's perspective.
Go ahead.
In this present situation, it seems to be more methodical in trying to get to wherever it is they're trying to get. Whereas in the former case or situation, it seemed very rushed to me.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of missteps took place in the former situation that probably, allowed for the conclusion that, that the courts came to. And that's just from my perspective. But this
Yeah,
one seems to
it could
be
be true. It could be
a
true.
lot more methodical.
Yeah, it could be true. Because sometimes you really don't know the pressure, the political pressure, and having things
Mhm.
done hurriedly and not doing it properly.
Yeah.
So it could be that. And you would only know if you actually work in that department
Yeah.
to know exactly what went wrong. But
Mhm.
it is more or less like the same process. The former one was on bribery. What's this one on? Same thing, bribery? I think so, eh? Corruption.
It's a whole host of stuff. But yeah,
Mm.
corruption, I suppose.
My only question with all of that was what would be why would a sitting minister commit all of these crimes? Just a question. I wouldn't I don't understand why would you do that?
Could it be, and not just for this particular minister we're talking about, could it be that they think, well, my time here isn't indefinite. Let me do what I could do. I have all the access to all the inner machineries to make certain things happen. I'm just wondering, because I ask
Mm.
myself the same question.
No, but in
Um,
this day and time, it's not that easy to hide things. Yeah, no, okay. If you had been in politics and you had been former ministers, then I would say you would know how the wheels turn. But you're brand new. Why would you take such a risk when you don't know how things run?
Well, I watched this show called American Greed, and it makes me scratch my head. I was like, what was the person thinking? And I just think when you're in that moment of deciding, okay, this is the way I want to go. I see an avenue to enrich myself. I don't think you think practically or rationally. I don't think you think about all the possible consequences or roadblocks or whatever. I think a person like that is really just thinking about, okay, I can do this way. I have like I say, the inside track to the mechanisms to make this happen. Why not? And then oftentimes you would hear people say, well, so-and-so did it before and seem to have gotten away with it. That's just me. I don't know. I can't answer the question because I've asked
Yeah,
myself the same question.
I don't understand.
And ego is a very serious thing. A lot of people think they're smarter than the average bear. They'll be like, okay, so-and-so did it this way. He's so dumb. This is what I can do. This is what I can do, right? And they take it from that direction. I don't know. And just one last point, and then I'll let you move on. And having a discussion with a family member, I guess a lot of people are willing in that position, are willing to take the chance because we seem to want to embarrass people more than actually make them accountable for their actions. Just like to your point, you said, well, we don't know how this is going to play out because, there's a political aspect to it. And so the point my family member is saying, they're like, okay, after they embarrassed so-and-so, and we gave a couple examples. I won't call names, but there are many examples. So all the man or woman business out there, blah, blah, blah. But what happened in the long run? Nothing. They weren't made to pay back any monies. They weren't sent to prison, nothing. So it's almost like, ooh, look what so-and-so did. He think he was so this and blah, blah, blah. And he was doing this foolishness all along behind the scenes. So we managed to embarrass the person, but without any real consequence. So maybe, you know, the persons that come along and say, you know what, I can get what I can get while I can. At best, they probably can put my name out there and I can be embarrassed for a bit. And then
But I'll
it's
get away with it.
blow over. Sorry?
I say, then I'll get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems to be the thing. And then I decide not to try to figure it out. Because whereas you and I would say, maybe I ain't gonna go through this because then I can embarrass my mommy, I can embarrass my children, I can embarrass my husband, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they put that much thought into it. Persons who are inclined to go down this route that we're talking. I'm saying. And this is just my
Yeah.
own
Well,
observation.
we'll see. We'll see. Because I know they say it's a lot of counts. I'm seeing something, I just do a Google search, but I try and understand what they're saying. Because, you know, when you read these blogs, like a blog or something, this isn't a news. So this is Bahama Press. So the things is disjointed. Adrian
Yes.
Gibson in hot water over legal fees row. Something he did with water and sewage. Water and sewage chairman is in hot water after a lawsuit filed by a top law firm accuses him of corruption. So he's getting it from all angles.
Sure is, yeah.
And I don't understand because the minister normally seeks the assistance of his permanent secretary.
Mhm.
So either he acted alone or he did it with the assistance of persons within the ministry itself.
Yeah.
I don't, this is the things that I don't understand, because you can't just come as a minister and sit there and just keep signing. Everything, you know, you sit down with the permanent secretary, because the permanent secretary know how things run. They are the person who manage that ministry. And I think if things were not running the way it should be run, then the permanent secretary should have spoken out or advised the prime minister or the deputy prime minister. And that's why I say it becomes really political and becomes messy.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the opposite way to do it is to just to follow the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that speaks for itself.
Mhm.
And I can tell you from working in a commercial bank, it is really, really important that you follow the money.
Mhm.
Because the money keeps moving. Thank
course.
God for automation. So even though we have a lot of training on money laundering and terrorist financing, Bahamians just continuously do it every day.
Mhm.
So you take, for instance, the boat last weekend, the same time, all those persons died. One, the boat was too small. Two, the captain had already been charged with this before in the United States. He took the risk to do it again.
Because like I said, he probably said, okay, I did it like this the last time. Or he just doesn't care. You have some
Maybe.
people, they're so egotistical and narcissistic, they just don't care. And they're driven more by the greed and the money than common sense. And of course, in this case, humanity, humaneness, even contemplating, I am putting lives at risk. You know, I don't know. I think it's a special kind of person who operate those kinds of I can't call it a business, operations, just operations.
Yeah, it is an operation, and it is a business for him.
Yeah, I know.
But he put the Bahamas reputation. I mean, the international, the United States Senate report, or the international money laundering report that comes out every year, we are featured in it.
Mhm.
Bahamas is a money laundering center. We push back. The prime minister even just pushed back on the recent report.
Yeah.
And here we are, a Bahamian, right here in Nassau, on the dock, human smuggling en route to Freeport,
Mhm.
boat overload. What can we say?
Absolutely nothing.
And it is a shame because we have drafted so much legislation, and the regulators are training, and you still have people committing these crimes, even though it was night. I'll just say broad daylight, because the defense force boats go around the dock all night long. So it's just like they don't understand, or they don't want to understand, or it's just like you say, it's greed. Or some people believe that they're smarter than everybody else.
Mhm.
But money laundering, like I always tell students, happens every day here in the Bahamas. And if you don't remove the scales from your eyes, you won't be able to see it, because they just blatantly do it in front of your eyes. So money laundering itself is about criminals moving money. So these three gentlemen who are being charged, now the banks have to look to see if they have any accounts in their names. I can tell you there have been others who have been charged with gun smuggling. When you look on their account, hardly any money.
Of course. Mhm.
A lot of them don't put their money in banks. So you would have never detected that that was the nature of their business. They normally have some small self-employed business where there's just little small sums coming in. But if you would take the time and read the central bank report to see the amount of cash that is in circulation, you know that it's not adding up. So there are 3 stages of money laundering, and everybody knows those: placement, layering, and integration. So most of the local criminals, they don't bother with placement. Layering, yes. And then the rest, they just spend it. Buying things, paying bills, paying children's school fees, going out, buying groceries. All of that is done by cash. That's why they're moving towards a cashless society. But then, of course, money laundering can also take place through wire transfers. So for someone to be charged with money laundering, you don't have to commit the 3 stages. It could be any one. And with the new Proceeds of Crime Act, it goes even further. It says that it is an offense if you have knowledge or reasonable suspicion that someone is concealing the proceeds of crime, or they're disguising it, they're converting it, they're transferring it, or they remove it from the Bahamas. So those guys that were doing human smuggling, which is one of the offenses in the Bahamas and under the Proceeds of Crime Act, the question is, they probably have not been paid as yet, because those 3 persons cannot be the only persons that is a part of this whole smuggling process. There's always someone who is in charge. So most likely they're working for someone. And that person is either in the United States, in Freeport, or in Nassau. It's also a crime under the Proceeds of Crime Act if you arrange or make some arrangement concerning the proceeds of crime. Again, the act says that if you know or you suspect, or you ought to reasonably have known or suspected that you have entered or you're entering into an arrangement. So that's another thing when you speak to people and people tell you, hold these funds, or I'm in a hurry, or I need you to do something, I'm traveling, I have this item I needed to buy, can you go and pay for it? And then they give you the funds. You don't know who is watching, and you don't know where the funds came from. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Another, go ahead, just gonna say something, Sandy?
No, I was just agreeing. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Sharella made a good point about cryptocurrency being another possible avenue for laundering.
And everybody is into crypto now because they realize that you can move funds much quicker. And let's just say, to me, the parallel crypto world is to get rid of a lot of the restrictions that's in the normal banking world. And even though they have to follow the same AML rules, they are trying to avoid doing that by the way in which they move their assets. Because you have a lot of fraud going on right now in that crypto market. So it is an offense where a person knows or suspects or ought to reasonably have known or suspected that they were acquiring or is acquiring the proceeds of crime. And so this means that it's not just the person who committed the crime, but it's also a person who receives proceeds. And so my example I always give is that if you're in a house, your son, your cousin, your nephew, your husband brings you items, and you know that they don't have the means to afford such item, and the police comes and the police says they're doing a raid, and they knock on your house, or they have a warrant for his or her arrest, and you have items in your possession, and you cannot provide receipts where you paid for these items based upon your income, then you will be charged along with them for proceeds of crime. Now, in the business world, there is also an offense if you fail to disclose to the police or the FIU that you have reasonable suspicion that money laundering is taking place. So that's where the failure to disclose could be either by the MLRO, or it could be anyone in the front office, or anyone who reasonably ought have known by documentation or transaction passing their desk. And so that's why you see they say training is for everybody, because everybody now can be liable for failure to disclose. If looking at a transaction, reasonably you ought to have known. Another thing I see now, I just saw a case online, a local case, where fraud took place in an offshore bank, and funds were transferred out of the country. So the action was fraud, and then once the funds were transferred out and the person utilized those funds, then it becomes money laundering. And you see the same thing here locally, where a lot of Bahamians would have committed fraud, and then they would have spent the funds, and then now are being charged with money laundering. And of course, it has always been a crime to tip off. I know Bahamians like to go home and sit down and talk about people's business, but it is a crime if you tip a person off. So when you look at when a client comes in, whether that's in a commercial setting, whether that's in a corporate service setting, or an offshore setting, or family office setting, The Financial Transaction Reporting Act and its regulations require you to do due diligence, client due diligence. Due diligence means that you have to get the requisite documents to verify who the person is. But it also requires you to know your client, which are two different things. Client due diligence is making sure you get the documents, the passport or the identification card, the proof of address, knowing where they do their business. But the part about knowing your client is not just knowing where they do their business, but who they do their business with, the frequency of it. Whether or not they're changing from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. Do they have any contracts, or have they had any contracts with any governments or government officials? Do they have any companies outside of the organizational structure that they sent for approval that may be doing business with the clients that, with the companies that you know? So the first thing you have to do when you have a client is you have to identify who they are, and you use reliable, independent source. Now, the outgoing inspector, he did mention in the newspaper that we try not to, I guess, make it too difficult to onboard clients. He said there's too much requirements. And you'd see in the central bank's AML guidelines at the very back, it gives you alternatives for documents when you want to identify who a client is. So as long as the client is risk rated low risk, there is no need to ask for additional documents. A simple passport, a copy of their BPL bill, or whatever electrical company is in their jurisdiction, is all that's required. That's simple due diligence. Now, enhanced due diligence is where you have persons that either come from sanctioned jurisdictions, or they are persons who are dealing over a certain threshold. And of course, added to that, the persons who are classified as PEPs.
Is this also required for the clients that is incorporating as well?
Enhanced due diligence?
Yeah.
No. Why would you want it?
No, I just was wondering if that's something that's expected as well, like a copy of the bill and all of that other stuff.
Okay, so
But
for
general.
for a company, let's say someone wants to incorporate a company here. If they don't have an existing structure, this is the first time they're incorporating a company, then you would get the due diligence on that individual only, because the company doesn't exist as yet. So you would get their passport, their address verification, you would get a banking reference, and you get a character reference. That's it. Now, if that person is from a sanctioned jurisdiction or from a high-risk jurisdiction, or he is a diplomat, or he works for the government, then you have to do enhanced due diligence on that individual. So that's just someone coming in to get a company for the first time. Now, let's just say someone comes in and they want to incorporate a company, but they have an existing organizational structure. So let's say they have a company in Liechtenstein, and that company has a subsidiary in Seychelles, and then that company has a subsidiary in BVI, and now they want to incorporate a company in the Bahamas. So of course you would get the KYC on whoever is the ultimate beneficial owner, who is that human being behind this whole structure. Where there's one person, two persons, three persons, you have to get KYC on all of them. Then you need to get the KYC on the company from Liechtenstein. So you're going to ask for the memorandum and articles of association, because don't forget now, that is the brain of the company. Then you're going to get the certificate of good standing. And that tells you that all of the fees, requisite fees have been paid and all the statutory filings have been done with the registrar. And now, depending on the jurisdiction, you can ask for the register of members, officers, and directors. Some jurisdictions you don't get it separately, because once they go to the registrar, all of that is produced on one sheet of paper. So it depends on the jurisdiction. So when you look at the structure, the company that is being incorporated in the Bahamas is company number 4. The question you then ask yourself is whether the two companies between the newly incorporated and the ultimate parent, will there be transactions flowing through those companies to that new company? And that determines what documents you require. Now, in some instances, if they're just holding companies, you just ask for a certificate of good standing. If they are operating companies, then you need not only certificate of good standing, then you're gonna ask for the same documentation you asked for from the very first company from Liechtenstein, the memo and arts, the register of members and directors. Now, the company that's being incorporated here will also have to have directors and officers. And so you're gonna have to get the KYC on those officers and directors. In most instances, if they're incorporating an IBC, the ultimate beneficial owner of the structure, the director of the newly incorporated company, the officer of the newly directed company are all one and the same. Any questions?
No, that was straightforward.
Okay, all right. And so that leads to the point where the international arena always says that these IBCs are vehicles for money laundering. Because even though there is a structure with 3 companies, 4 companies, 1 company, 2 companies, they're all owned by one person. And if they don't have a bank account here in the Bahamas, they have bank account other places around the world. So if that is a company where we act as registered agent, registered office, we really don't get to see the transactions. So you really don't know what your client is doing. And so that is why there's always that talk every year and a half to 2 years that, again, that the IBCs are used for money laundering. So under the financial intelligence reporting regulations, they also require you, an organization, to train. And the training is based on money laundering. You can do it in combination with terrorist financing or proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. But it requires that annual training is always done so that staff are aware. And nothing is better than actually trying to find local cases. So in a person's mind, they have something to draw on rather than something international. But you know, when it comes to terrorism, most of it has to be international. So in the incorporation of companies where there's an IBC or a CAC, you know, those are done by financial corporate service providers. And the Compliance Commission regulates those. So even though you would get your license from the Securities Commission, when it comes to money laundering, that is done by the Compliance Commission. And the Compliance Commission always try to ensure that you have KYC on all of your clients and that you follow the legislation strictly. So the first thing is you have to have a risk-based framework, high, medium, and low. It is recommended that that is automated. And you have to be able, when examiners come, to provide them with a listing of your high-risk clients. You also have to be able to show them that you review your high-risk clients on an annual basis. That's one, making sure that they still should be categorized as high risk, and two, that you have done enhanced due diligence on those clients. An enhanced due diligence for an existing client means that you're going to go do a world check, and you're also going to search on the internet to see if there's been any adverse comments about those persons. Even though that's a part of your everyday work, you're going to still have to do it because you have to document it. So whenever if you think or you have a reasonable suspicion that money laundering is going on based on your research, then you have to advise your MLRO, who should report it to the FIU. And of course, the FIU has its own form that you need to fill out and upload in their portal. So KYC, for most instances, is, like I said, you have to get their full name, their address, and 2 phone numbers, not one, you need 2. You have to get their occupation. Now, a lot of the foreigners like to put retired or self-employed, but if they are retired, then they need to say from where. The reference letters, like I said, and you also have to make sure that when they copy the passport, that they copy the 4 pages, the 4 corners of the page. The utility bill shouldn't be older than 3 months. They should also state why they want to incorporate a company. In most instances, they are either to purchase property, or they're purchasing a home, or simply they want to do business. Like they may already have structures around the world, but they may want to be doing some business locally with some other foreign entities, and so they need to incorporate a company. You normally ask them for their VAT requirements if they're going to be doing business in the Bahamas. Now, if the company itself is listed on the stock exchange, then simplified due diligence is required. Because remember, to be on a stock exchange, they would have had to be vetted. So that would include the ultimate beneficial owners and also the directors and the officers on those companies. Now, if the beneficial owner at the very top is a trust, then you need to know who is the settlor, who is the protector, and who are the beneficiaries. And you have to obtain their passports and their proof of address. You would also get a copy of the trust deed or the relevant sections of the trust deed stating the powers that were given to the trustee. And of course, in most instances, the trustee is a professional entity and you're able to find them under the listing of the regulator.
I just don't understand. It's not like if they didn't have money for the surgery, if they didn't have money for surgery, then people needed to need the she got the surgery for her life. But if y'all could pay for the surgery, y'all already have the money and all that, then why people need to pay? Just spend the money. Y'all could always spend some time making the money back. Why you asking people if y'all have the money? And it's like people don't want no money. Like,
Does Angelique know her mic is on?
Oh,
don't think so.
sorry.
I was trying to figure out. Okay, so you have in banking something called eligible introducers.
Just let her know also now her camera is on. She unmuted. I mean, she muted, but her camera's on.
Oh, Lord.
Don't worry, Angelique, you look okay.
Okay, she did it. All right, so you have something called eligible introducers. So eligible introducers, that is where you have, let's just say you're a part of a group of companies. That's one example. And they could have a client who wants to do business in the Bahamas or in the United States, but they want to incorporate a company here in the Bahamas. So they would refer that client to either a financial corporate service provider or to the bank itself. And when you have an eligible introducer, it means that that entity is coming from a jurisdiction whose laws are comparable to the Bahamas. And so normally you do not require KYC information. All you do is you get a confirmation that you will provide the KYC when needed. So another way this can be done as an eligible introducer, if you're in the corporate service providers arena, is that an attorney can refer a client to another attorney, saying that this attorney wants to either do business or wants to incorporate a company in the Bahamas. And again, if that client is a client of that law firm, they can confirm that they have the due diligence on hand. Now, sometimes the referral is only a referral by, this is a client walked in and this is what the client wants to do. And he's doing business here with us. And he's also wants to do business in the Bahamas. And then the law firm will say whether or not they have due diligence on that client. So one of the services that we offer here in the Bahamas is to provide nominee services. And nominee services is like when we were saying earlier with the example, with the matter with Adrian Gibson and the annual statement. So if you don't want your name to appear on the annual statement, then you prepare a declaration of trust and someone will hold the shares on your behalf. To do that, you must have a nominee agreement or the declaration of trust. And then it's executed by the parties. Now, whether financial corporate service provider is given signing authority or any authorization to act as a director or authorized signatory, the client must complete a declaration of source of funds. Why? Because at the end of the day, the authorized signatory will be responsible for the transactions. to act as a registered office, registered agent, the ultimate beneficial owner will have to sign a management agreement, a fee agreement, and a service agreement. All of that is to facilitate the arrangement whereby they don't have to worry about filings, they don't have to worry about fees. And like I said before, based on the risk rating of the client, then reviews are taking place either once a year, twice a year, maybe once a year, every 2 years, or every 3 years, based on the risk rating of the client. So overall, you see that even though you incorporate a company, and even though you provide services on behalf of that company, there is a responsibility as a financial corporate service provider to ensure that you are not, or you do not have knowledge or suspicion of money laundering taking place. So that's the key thing about knowing your client. So it's not just simply accepting your passport and your dress verification, but it's also finding out who the person is, where do they work, what do they do, and whether or not they have a criminal record. Any comments?
Ms. Archer, I have one question. Just not on that particular topic, but when we were speaking about onboarding a corporate entity, let's say the beneficial owner is from a low-risk region, and the company they're incorporating, let's say they're not incorporating it in the Bahamas. Let's say it has been incorporated in a high-risk jurisdiction. For me, I would consider the higher of the two, but is there a general rule? Do you consider the rating of the beneficial owner or the company itself? Because this is an ongoing debate. My stance is you just go with the higher, but others are saying, well, you're onboarding the company. The company is the entity with the account with you. So you look at the company, but I don't know.
Okay, but I like to draw in my mind.
Okay,
So start again. The company,
so let's,
company is coming as under foreign registration?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's coming in under foreign registration, and you're saying it's coming from a high risk jurisdiction.
Yes, ma'am. Let's say it was incorporated. I can't even think of a high risk. Yeah, it was incorporated in a high risk jurisdiction.
Okay, all right.
But the beneficial owner is from a low risk jurisdiction. Would you rate that? And would you rate that facility as high or low?
High.
High, right? Exactly. Okay.
High. It has to be high.
And vice versa. Even if the BO was high and the company was low, it would be the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Agreed. Thank you.
I wouldn't choose low over high. No, why? What was the rationale they gave?
Their thing is, well, it's not the individual that's being onboarded. The company is opening the account with the bank, not the individual. So you look at the company as the account holder and not the beneficial owner.
No, but that don't make much sense.
That's what I told them. But you know, they think when you're in Switzerland or the UK, they know more, or like your opinions doesn't matter. Oh, this is recorded. Sorry.
It's only for you. No, because guess what? Let's look at it from the first way, where the company is high risk and the ultimate BO is low risk. If you look at the structure itself, the transaction will be coming from a high risk jurisdiction. So is the ultimate BO on the board of this foreign entity?
Yes.
Well, then it's high risk. It's just like if you were the ultimate beneficial owner here, a Bahamian, low risk. But the company in which you're doing business is in a high risk jurisdiction. How can it be low? It just can't. Even if it's low and medium, you put it at medium.
Exactly.
So I don't understand. I don't understand their logic. I don't get it. All right. So my next question is now, who looked at the legislation? Remember that was homework.
Was
Nope.
that homework?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. I have it written down here.
I
Wait,
know. Okay, so let me tell you what we'll do for next class, because if you don't have it in front of you, it is going to be difficult. So remember how when we ended last class, we were comparing company legislation versus IBC legislation? Remember?
and I think we actually said for this class, we were gonna put the two side by
Yes.
side.
Yes. So is everybody ready to do that? I'm glad someone remember what I said, 'cause I wrote it down too.
Well, we can't really lie because these are recorded.
So what I wanted us to do,
Can you remind me of which legislation, because I might have written it down, but
the Companies Act and the IBC Act.
we were supposed to read the entire act.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now, let me tell you what I usually do. I normally split the class in two. One side takes the CAC and the other side takes the IBC. And we compare it like that. And I let you choose which one you either more familiar with or would prefer to learn. So let's see, who wants to do the CAC?
Me. Christina.
Send me. Sandy?
Yeah.
Christina.
Oh, no, was that
That was-
Christina, I think? You saying me?
Christina, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandy, what do you want to do?
I'm gonna do IBC.
Okay. Sharella?
I can do IBC.
Okay. Angelique?
I'm so scared to turn on this mic. I'll do the IPC.
Why I feel like is IBC shorter?
No,
Because
because
everybody picking IBC.
No,
No.
only because it's what I'm more familiar with. That's the only reason
me
why.
too. No, IBC is like IBCs is yeah.
So Makira, you're left with CAC.
Wait, wait. What were you saying? IBC is what?
But I could do the company. No, I could do the company as app. That's fine.
Okay. Angelique can go over on this side. Okay. Okay, Makira, what do you want to do?
I'll do the CAC.
Ah, you see? That's wonderful. Okay, so IBC will be Sandy and Sharella. And the CAC will be Christina, Angelique, and Makira, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so are you all ready? Or I have to extend this to next class?
Right?
Could
You
extend
ready?
It would be
next
great if you
class.
could extend it to next
Ready to
class.
say?
Okay, no, that's fine, that's fine, that's
Next
fine.
class.
Right, so remember at the end of last class, when we would have just hurriedly ran over the sections? Remember at the end of unit 2,
Yes.
Yeah, and I said that normally what I do is we hurriedly go over it, but then we actually pull the legislation out the following week and then read the sections. So that's what I want us to do. First thing next class, and then after that, we're gonna talk about pre-incorporation. And the
And
law.
so, and so will you just be asking us questions on the acts, or we have to?
No, we're gonna actually go through the acts, through the sections.
Okay.
So you get familiar with it. Because a lot of things that you do, a lot of people find out when they take this class that, oh, I didn't know it was required in law. This thing is just a step. So when you read the act, you see exactly why you do what you do or why certain things are required. And then we'll go into the lecture, which again refers to the legislation as to the persons who promote a company before it's incorporated. What's their liability and what can they do to protect themselves? And that's also in the law. All right. So I think Angelique has homework for me.
I do.
Yes, and I'm gonna send you homework number 2.
Ain't true.
Yes, and then everybody needs to bring their legislation.
So the homework for the first assignment and then the legislation for the companies act.
And homework number 2.
What homework? I missed homework number 2. What homework number 2 is?
I'm gonna send this.
Ouch. Okay.
I'm gonna send homework number 2 tonight.
Okay, great.
Yeah. It will not be as easy as this one.
Ouch.
No. Okay, so I'll be sending that. All right, so enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Thank you, and
Yes,
same to
thank
you.
you.
Yes,
Everyone, take care, be safe.
Have a good day.
yes.
Have a good holiday, everybody.
Okay, all right.
Bye.
Ms. Arthur.
Yes.
Hi. Oh, okay. I know I came a little late for the class, right? But I just needed to know if you could give me a little clarification on what the homework is exactly, please.
Okay, hold on. I wrote everything down. Hold on, you did send your first homework, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so your first homework, you had a good attempt, but you didn't put any case law in it. You put Jones versus Lipman.
Yeah, that's the one what I did. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you didn't put in Press versus Petrodel. So you really, when you talk about the separate corporate personality, you
Mhm.
need to speak about Solomon itself. Then you could speak about when the courts did pierce the corporate veil in the past. And then you come down to Press versus Petrodel, where the courts are trying not to pierce the corporate veil, instead using other remedies. So you missed that part out.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to send you all homework number 2, which will not be just a simple question like this. It will be a scenario I'll send you all.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You were part of the conversation for the midterm.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So for the midterm, they decided it to be a take home. So it will be scenario questions.
I was gonna go
Similar.
back and listen, sorry, but I was gonna go back and listen to the recording on YouTube when this was over. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, that's fine. That's fine. And then the next homework will be the CAC versus the IBC Act itself. So you're doing the CAC Act. And so how this is done is that, I don't know, I don't think it's easy for you to do it online because you're going to be going through different sections. So normally you'd have it in front of you. And
In the
I'll
book.
say, like I'll ask, what is the question? Like I'll say, what is required why is it required to have, or what is the requirement for a company that is incorporated in the Bahamas? So you'll have to go to the relevant sections and see what is required under CAC. And then the IBC team will say, this is what's required under the IBC Act. Because there is a difference between the two legislation, even though there are similarities.
Okay. Alrighty.
All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
right,
And any other
thank-
questions, you could always email me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, not a problem.
Have a good weekend.
You too, bye.
Bye.